Hello everyone and welcome to another Birch Aquarium at Scripps Kelp Cam Live. My name is Kaitlyn. I'm an educator and interpreter for Birch Aquarium. And I'm very excited to be here with you today to play a little bit of Kelp Forest Bingo, which we'll talk about in just a second. But first, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Dalissa. Hi, Dalissa.
Hey girl, my name is Dalissa. I'm another ocean educator here at Birch Aquarium. And I've talked about this a little bit before, but I'm an interpreter, so which doesn't mean that I speak many languages, but means that I tell the stories of the animals and I interpret the science.
Yeah, and I'm also an interpreter. We love being here to talk with you today. Today we are going to play something called Kelp Cam Bingo. So if you would like to play, there should be a little link in the comment section for you to be able to download or open up, even print out this Kelp Cam Bingo card. But don't worry if you can't or don't want to play, that's okay too. We are just gonna spend the next 30-45 minutes to kind of talk about some of the awesome animals that live in this tank that maybe get a little less attention than usual, and also so that you guys can learn a little bit more about us since we're here so often. So to get started, I was wondering if maybe, Dalissa, you could tell me just real quick your favorite part of working for the aquarium.
Alrighty. Yeah, and like Kaitlyn said, let us know if you have any questions about pretty much anything. We can answer questions about the kelp tank, about fish, the sea in general. We got you. Any burning questions you've been thinking of for a while. But all right, so my favorite thing about working at Birch, I would have to say, I mean, besides like the incredible view, I would say it's probably the whales, which is incorporated in the view. So out on Tidepole Plaza, during migration season, every now and then, if you're lucky, you can see some whales. And from where you stand on Tidepole Plaza, you can see the pier. And sometimes the juvenile gray whales, they'll come really, really close to the pier, and you can nearly see the barnacles on their back, and it's amazing. I literally have dreams about whales like all the time. But we also embark on whale watching, which is another really cool part of the job too. So it's really, really, it's fun. I love whales. Favorite thing.
My favorite thing is actually this exhibit. So I love the Kelp Forest. I think it's amazing. It's an extremely biodiverse place. And the Kelp Forest and our Kelp Forest exhibit here just gives you a great chance to see a huge variety of animals. To start actually today, we can talk about one of our animals that actually you can just barely see at the top right in the center there. She's swimming by, and that's our giant black sea bass. So our giant black sea bass, she has been at our aquarium since it opened. She was actually in the one just before it opened. We had a smaller one down the hill. And so she's been with the aquarium a very long time, since I think 1992. She might be a little older than that, but we love her. She's a giant. She's about 300 pounds. And you can see she's got those beautiful black spots on her side. And she really does like to hang up near the top there, or hang out up there. But she'll sometimes swim down to the bottom and scratch herself on those rocks down there, and it's just an awesome thing to see. So in the wild, do you want to tell us a little bit about maybe what they look like in the wild, Dalissa, and what's been going on with them?
Yeah, so giant black sea bass are just that. They're giant, and they're pretty much like the gentle giants of the kelp forest. So they can get up to the size of a small car, which is really, really big for a fish. But they were hunted down to near extinction, which brought them to be protected, and they're listed on the IUCN Red List as, I think it's like near extinction, but like one step before that. But basically, through all of the protection programs that have been going on, their numbers have increased, and they've been doing pretty well, or have at least been increasing. But yeah, if you accidentally catch one, then I think you're allowed one per trip, but they're pretty safe and tight regulations on those guys.
And we can see them really often out in our marine protected area right off the coast of La Jolla. And so that marine protected area includes a kelp forest. And so divers have been seeing them more and more often, which is really, really awesome for their species and for the divers. So it's amazing when you get to see these big, beautiful animals. And it looks like someone named Thomas and Ray say hi. So hello, thank you for watching. If you want to play again that Kelp Cam Bingo, the link is up there for you to download or open. And if you do decide to play, don't forget that free space in the center. And we obviously just saw our giant black sea bass, so she's in the bottom left-hand corner. So if you want to play, we've already got 2 spaces going. And then maybe for a second, you can tell us what your favorite animal in this exhibit is, Dalissa.
All right, I would love to. My favorite animal, if I can spot them, are the California Moray eels. They're usually kind of in the bottom left, what we're seeing right now, kind of entangled in the kelp. They're really, really cool. They look really ancient looking, and they're some of the oldest animals that we have in the entire aquarium. Can anybody guess what the oldest animal actually is? The ones that I'm talking about, so the California Morays, these ones are about 40 years old. And some of the older ones that we have in the aquarium are about 45. So they can live for a really long time. And they like to entangle themselves at the bottom of the kelp. And a lot of times people think that they're kind of stuck, but they're happy. They like to chill there, and they'll squeeze themselves out. And it's really cool to see them swim. They can swim forwards, backwards. They're really awesome. And another thing that most people don't know is they're like voracious predators. So they have one set of jaws in the very front of their mouths that helps them catch their prey. And then they have another set of jaws in the backs of their mouths near their throat that helps push the prey down their throat. So they got a strong bite. And so if you see one of these guys when you're diving, you're going to want to swim the other way, though they might not see you because they're pretty much entirely nearsighted.
And these guys have like really slimy, slippery skin. And so our moray eels are often, yeah, like you said, tangled up, or they look tangled up, or maybe even stuck in the rocks. So I think I can actually see one down in the rocks in the bottom left-hand corner, just under that black fish right there. And they often look like they're stuck, but their slimy skin helps them be able to wiggle in and out of places. And they have really thick skin, so they can go in places that maybe other fish can't, because, you know, their skin is thick and slimy, and they don't get hurt as easily. And
what's your favorite?
Oh, my favorite? Man, that's a hard question. It's a pretty close tie between our giant black sea bass and between our broomtail grouper. So we have them in other tanks too, but our broomtail grouper, they're really, really amazing. So our broomtail grouper is actually swimming towards the back of the tank right now. It was that black fish that was actually hovering over our moray eel there. And I love them because one, they are big and beautiful. 2, because they have cool, really awesome personalities. So there's some in our other fish tanks as well. I think there's some with the CRC turtle. And they're just like little characters. So sometimes when people go to see our sea turtle, she'll be hiding down in the bottom corner or something. But she, while they're waiting for her to decide to swim back up, I'll always point out our groupers, because they're, you know, following each other around, and they communicate by changing colors. So their skin have little chromatophores in them, which just means little ink sac basically, and they change colors. They can have they look like kiss prints on their skin, or they can turn all like blanched white, or they can turn black like the one that you just saw. Sometimes they can even get little stripes down the side of them, and they'll do it very quickly. And it's awesome to be able to see. A lot of animals can change color, but some of them do it a lot slower. And so to be able to see it right before your eyes on these giant, magnificent creatures is one of my favorite things about the aquarium, for sure. Now it looks like someone is mentioning that they are playing Kelp Bingo. Hi, Maria. And it says that they saw the leopard shark, a blue rockfish.
Awesome.
They got a bingo. Great job, Maria and family, I am sure. So if you guys want to keep playing, that's awesome. We will be pointing out some of the animals on this bingo sheet, so keep an eye out, and hopefully you guys can play too. Someone, also Miss Brittany, she asked, what are the orange fish called? Do you want to talk about those orange fish, Dalissa?
Oh yeah, those are our Garibaldi's. You can see them a lot if you're diving or even snorkeling just here off of our coast of La Jolla. They stand out because they're so bright and orange and beautiful, and they love the kelp forests. So they're actually our California state marine fish, and everybody pretty much loves those guys. They're beautiful.
Yeah, and they're actually, those orange fish are often thought of as being kind of cranky fish. So you can see that there's one down at the bottom. That's pretty common for them to be around the rocks, especially the males. The males will make a little nest on the rocks, and then they will defend that territory. So they've been known to give divers little bites, like through their masks. They make little grunting noises at each other. So they're just very territorial. And the juveniles actually are still orange. They're very small, obviously, because they're babies, and they have blue spots. And so it's thought those blue spots, one, help break up their coloration so that they're less attractive to predators, and two, maybe to tell the larger grown-up Garibaldi, like, please don't yell at me, like, I'm a baby, it's okay. And so those Garibaldi in our tanks will even still, like when our divers go in, they'll kind of like peck at them or let them know, like, this is my territory. And sometimes our divers will go collect their eggs if they have them in there so that we can raise Garibaldi, and they get really cranky about it, so it's really funny. All right, so let's see, what other fish can we see? It looks like someone said that they love the leopard sharks, Liam. So the leopard shark, do you want to tell us a little bit about leopard sharks? And maybe if you see one in the tank, you can point it out.
Yeah, we usually have one leopard shark just kind of making its rounds around the tank. And it's pretty much, oh, there he goes. He's coming on the left side. This one is a pretty much full-grown leopard shark, and they're actually found just off of our coast of San Diego. We talked about them a little bit before, but basically they're bottom feeders. So they like to eat little crustaceans and worms off of the seafloor, and you can kind of swim over them and they won't bother you at all. They're more afraid of you than you are of them. And so even though they're big and they're sharks, they're nothing to be worried about. And actually they're most prominent predator here in San Diego. Can anybody guess it? It's kind of surprising what the leopard shark's biggest predator is.
And while we're waiting on you guys to guess what the leopard shark predator is, someone, it looks like O'Reilly, asked us to talk about the California scorpion fish. So these fish are hide and wait predators, which means you're going to find them at the bottom of the tank here. So you're looking for maybe a small brown, or maybe even a little bit of orange fish. They do blend in really well, so you kind of have to look carefully. It's possible I see them next to that orange Garibaldi, maybe over closer to the right side of the tank. But they actually have venomous spines, so our divers have to be a little careful if they go in there and go to the bottom. But these guys are hide and wait ambush predators, and they're generally nocturnal. So a lot of times, even if we see them at the bottom, they'll kind of be resting during the day. And I get people telling me, like, oh, are they okay? And like, yeah, they're totally fine. They're just resting because they just kind of like to chill out down there at the bottom.
I've seen something really cute with those rockfish or the scorpion fish. Basically, since they're hide and wait predators, they kind of chill at the bottom for most of the day. And I've seen one resting on a sea cucumber, which I thought was super cute. It was using a sea cucumber kind of like a pillow. And I took a lot of pictures and it was adorable, but super cute.
It looks like someone else got a bingo. Way to go, Audra.
Awesome.
And
Good
so
eyes.
we should go back and talk about, it looks like someone guessed if it was humans that's the greatest predators for leopard sharks.
And
yeah, thanks, Anshika, for guessing.
Here in San Diego, humans are big predators for fish. I'd say, like, in general, those bigger fish are going to be mostly hunted on by humans, but leopard sharks in particular are most hunted on by sea lions. So they look at you, a swimmer, and they're going to think like, oh my gosh, that's my biggest predator. I'm going to swim away. So yeah, hard to believe, but it's sea lions.
Okay, so another fish in here is actually a schooling fish, and it is called the Pacific half moon. They're pretty cool. Actually, you can see a little group of them right in the center of the tank right now, 4 or 5 of them swimming together. And these half moon fish, they're kind of like a gray blue in color. They are schooling, and they can get pretty big, like about 2 feet. And these fish they look kind of like tuna. So they are just kind of big, almost like fatty looking, like they look pretty thick fish. And they are schooling fish. And one of my aquarists told me, or one of our aquarists told me that it's his favorite fish in the tank. So if you guys want to mark that off your bingo card, it looks like there's a bunch of them right there in the front.
Oh, love those guys.
Dalissa, can you maybe tell me how big this exhibit is? It's kind of hard to tell on the camera here.
Oh yeah. Does anybody want to guess?
Maybe how many gallons do you think is in this tank? Maybe you guys might know. It's probably been mentioned before if you're watching.
Probably.
If you're a long time watcher.
This tank is huge. Right now, Kaitlyn and I were noticing that there's that line that you can see kind of like a little bit above or a little bit just below the top of the tank. But basically that was kind of an extension to how much space we needed in this exhibit. So this exhibit holds back 70,000 gallons of water. That's like 900 bathtubs.
And it looks like Riley got a bingo. Congratulations, Riley. And also
Riley.
Good guess on how many gallons you thought there was.
Yeah. Times 7 and it would be spot on.
Swimming right across in the center here, I want to point it out because they're kind of hard to see sometimes, is a sargo fish. So down at the bottom, right about the center, is a sargo. You can tell that it's a sargo because of that black stripe across their side. So their black stripe kind of helps them, because they are schooling fish, helps break them up. So if a lot of them are together and they all have that black stripe, if a predator is going to try to eat one of them, it's actually hard to tell which fish, like where a fish starts and where a fish ends. And it gives them more of a chance to kind of get away. It can also make them look bigger too. So if there are a lot of fish with the same stripes together, it just makes them look like maybe one big organism instead of a bunch of smaller ones. Looks like Lara got a bingo. Congratulations, a blacksmith, kelp, leopard shark, kelp, surf perch, and sargo. Congratulations. Do you know how many, someone asked, looks like an Arja. Yeah, she asked how many fish are in the tank. Do you know how many fish?
That's a really great question. I'm not sure. This is a really diverse tank. It kind of takes like a little snapshot of what you might see like all the way across all the kelp forests along California. So there's quite a few different species in here. I'm not sure exactly how many individuals there are though. Do you know?
I'm sure that our aquarists know because they have to keep track of that kind of thing. But I don't have an exact number for you. I'm sorry. But it's like she said, there are plenty of different species to see. Dalissa, would you like to maybe point out another species in this tank that you really like?
Yeah. So let's talk about swell sharks. I actually don't see any right now because they're the masters of disguise in this tank. They usually like to hide at the bottom of the kelp tank, kind of in the substrates, because just like the leopard sharks, they're like bottom feeders and they're adorable. But let's see. I'm looking. They're really hard to spot. If anybody sees it, do let me know. But they are definitely some of my favorite and they're super adorable. And we talked about this before, but they leave the really cool egg cases that we call mermaid's purses.
And the mermaid's purses, they're made of keratin. So if you guys want to know what they feel like, what a shark egg feels like, you can just rub your fingernail because they're made out of the same thing that our fingernails are made out of. And it feels almost exactly the same, although theirs are probably a little more damp because they're in the water.
Definitely. Let's see. Trying to see what else I can find in here.
Well, while we're waiting for you guys to keep looking for the animals, maybe we could talk about maybe a myth that people always think about this tank. Maybe for me, it's always what we've already mentioned, that the eels are always stuck. I've had many people come to me so worried about those eels, and I love them, especially because the eels will sit there and they'll kind of look like they're gasping because they'll open their mouths and close their mouths. what they're actually doing is just pumping water over their gills so they can stay still. But people have come to me worried that they're sick or that they're hurt or even stuck. And so it's always really cute and sweet to have people like care so much about these animals.
The eels are really funny because when they keep their mouths open like that, they look like they've always told kind of like a bad joke and they're like waiting for everybody else to laugh. They're kind of they look like they're smiling like this. Like, but yeah, I have another myth too. So when sometimes you're walking by the tank, you might notice some of the fish getting they look a little bit more active than you might be used to. And so some of the shark species that we have in here, the horn sharks and the swell sharks, the way that they reproduce or they start to breed is they'll start to bite onto their fins, onto each other's fins, like of their own species. And that can actually leave like pretty significant, or not significant, but it's natural behavior, but it can leave little wounds on the sharks. And sometimes people get really concerned, but that's actually how they mate. And actually mating is a really great sign of animals' health. So if we see animals in an exhibit choosing partners and mating, then we know that they're pretty happy because they're completing all of their basic levels and even more.
And it looks like we had a question about the zebra fish. And I actually have a really interesting story about the zebra fish. It's that the zebra fish weren't actually in San Diego until about the 60s. And that's because they actually came down in an El Nino event. And before then, they didn't have a super stable population. But because of the El Nino, the warmer water, they actually made their way down and are now have a really large population. And if you want to know what they look like, if you think of what a zebra looks like and translate that into a fish. So they're kind of like a whitish yellow with lots of black stripes. And so if I see one, I'll point them out for you. I don't actually see one right now. They might be swimming around, but if I see one, I'll definitely point it out for you. You keep looking. Let us know if you get a bingo. It looks like someone named Moni just got a bingo. Congratulations.
Let's see. Why don't we talk about the rainbow scorpion fish? So those are a little bit different than the California ones. They're usually pretty bright and orange, but they're kind of like mottled with brown. And same thing, they're going to hang out at the bottom of the exhibit, so kind of near the sand. And you know they're a little bit different because of their coloration. And they usually have like 3 to 5 irregular dark bars that go along their sides. And that's kind of the same thing as the California ones. But they can reach to a maximum of 15 centimeters, which is good size. And what's fun about these guys is when they're babies, they like to hang around like long spine urchins. So can anybody guess why another fish might like to hang around an urchin? It's a type of symbiosis, which is two species that gain something from one another.
While we're waiting for you to guess, I think up at the top, kind of in the center, it just swam towards the back, but there are fish with little round whitish yellow circular dots on right in the center of their backs. Those are called opalei, and they get their name obviously from those white, looks kind of like opal circular dots on their back. And similar to maybe like the sargo with the stripe, the opalei use those white dots as kind of like a deterrent for predators. So usually on fish that have like a single spot on them somewhere, it's called a false eye spot. And the false eye spot allows them to maybe have a chance to get away from predators, because predators think that, one, when they're in a bigger group, that they're all looking at them, and two, that if they're, if they do bite for them, they're not biting for like the important parts, right? The gills or the head. They're maybe biting for something else, like something like fatty tissue that they could still survive from. And so if you guys see one, make sure you mark it on your bingo cards. And I see another sargo and maybe an opalei there in the back, swimming straight towards the back on the right-hand side.
Kaitlyn, do you want to talk about what your day might look like at Birch Aquarium?
Sure.
Like an average day going into work. What do you do there? Yeah,
so I do kind of a variety of things. You might meet me on the floor, so hopefully I get to see you guys soon. But if we if I meet you on the floor and I'm the person that's going to be answering all of your questions, just like I am here. And often I also give behind the scenes tours. So we have a really awesome tour called Growing Up Seahorse. And it's all about our wonderful breeding program and our species survival programs for seahorses and sea dragons. And so I get to show everybody my favorite things, which are all the cute little baby seahorses and all of the wonderful ways that we care for them. So if I'm not on a tour or I'm not on the floor, I might be on an outreach. So sometimes we bring the aquarium to you guys, wherever you are, for different kinds of events to help, like, just let you know that we're here, or just to share these wonderful animals with you. And it looks like Lara has a guess for you, Dalissa. She said, since the urchin has spikes, they might keep away predators from both the fish and themselves. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's exactly right. So the rainbow scorpion fish, when it's a little baby, it likes to hang around the long spine urchins. And urchins, as we all know, are really spiky, and not a lot of things like to eat the urchins. So that might scare away a lot of predators. So that's a perfect example of a symbiosis or a symbiotic relationship in the sea. One thing that does eat urchins, though, are otters, which are super cute. We get those a lot in the colder waters of NorCal. They like to hang out in the kelp beds. But otters will actually use different tools in the sea to break past those long spines and then get into the yummy meat of the urchin, which is inside of its test, which is a little shell. And they can even store the meat for long periods of time in their armpits. So they'll swim around with meat in their armpits, waiting for later.
And it's important that they eat those urchins too, because the kelp forest often does have urchins. But you'll notice if you ever visit here that our kelp forest doesn't. And that's because a lot of urchins love to eat the holdfasts of kelp. And so they'll eat the holdfast of kelps. The kelp will get up and float away. And there goes your kelp forest and all of the beautiful homes that it creates for our animals. And so instead, we don't have any art tank, but in the wild, there has to be animals called keystone species that help protect the kelp and regulate the amount of urchins that exist. And so our sea otters do that really well. Another animal that's actually on the bingo card does it too. It's our sheep's head. So they are a black and orange fish. The males will have a big hump on their heads. The females will kind of look smoother and maybe more of the orangish pink color. And then the males will have like a little white belly. So we have one in this tank. You'll just have to look around for it. I don't see it right now. Sometimes it likes to hang out on the rocks near the back. So if you look between the kelp, you might be able to find it. And then it looks like Brittany got a bingo. Congratulations, Brittany.
So did Donna.
Yay. So did Donna. Yeah, congratulations, guys. Yeah, keep playing and let us know when you get a bingo. We will obviously call you out. We're so excited that you're playing and that you're having a good time, because so are we.
We could do this all day. I love talking about fish.
So you mentioned the leopard shark and the swell shark. Is there another shark species in the tank?
Oh, yeah. So there's the horn shark. The horn sharks are really cute, and you can tell them apart from the swell shark, because the swell shark is a little bit more brown, but the horn shark is a little bit more cool color, kind of gray with black spots, and they have little horns on their on the tops of their bodies, which is the dorsal part of their bodies. And yeah, really cute. You can also spot their eggs laying around the sand too. They're shaped like little screws that they'll screw them into the substrate to keep them safe until the shark is ready to hatch.
And they are really tiny and really cute. They only grow about 3 feet. So whenever you get to see them, a lot of people think that they're babies still, but they're full grown and they're adorable. When our divers get in, they love coming to them to get little scratches and snacks. So they're almost like little puppy dogs. It's really cute to be able to see. If you guys...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you're joining us, swimming right across the front right there is that broom tail grouper I talked about earlier. So make sure you mark that on your bingo card if you are able to. It looks like it's chasing around a Garibaldi right now.
The groupers are really funny. The broomtails in particular. We have a couple of species, and the tank over. So if you were to keep going through the aquarium, if you were actually able to go in, you'd reach the turtle tank or the turtle exhibit, which holds our loggerhead sea turtle and a few different species of grouper. But the broomtail is known for having that broom, that serrated tail. And then we have another kind of grouper as well. And they're always kind of communicating different things to each other using their colors and flashing. One day you'll walk by and they're kind of white, and then the next you'll walk by and they're really dark with really cool patterns.
And I'm still looking for that sheep's head. Let me know if you guys see it. Oh, someone said that they saw the sheep's head at the top. Thanks, Audra. So the sheep's head, actually their species is really interesting because they do something kind of crazy. Every sheep's head is actually born female. And so over time, under certain conditions that scientists don't actually fully know, one of the females will turn into a male in order to mate and make other sheep's head babies. And so it's really interesting that they're all born female. Like, who would have thought?
Right? Our sheep's head, in the interpretive guide, it shows like a picture of a sheep head that's really bright orange. Ours is a little bit more dully colored orange. It has like a nice little stripe on its body. So it's sometimes kind of hard to spot. And I think that it's a little bit more dull, or the fact that it's a little bit more dull helps it hide into the kelp a little bit better.
Speaking of animals that hide in the kelp, there is a fish called a kelp fish, which we haven't talked about yet, but kelp fish are so good at looking like kelp. That's where they get, how they get their name. And they're often hiding kind of in the blades of the kelp. So you'll have to take a really close look at all the different kelp in there and the blades and see if you can see one of them maybe hiding in the kelp. They're usually brown or green. They kind of have the same coloration as the blades, and they'll actually kind of back themselves into like along the stipe or the stalk of the kelp in order to look like a blade of kelp. They have really specialized mouths. They are long like a blade, and they're even pointed at each end like a blade of kelp. And so their specialized mouths, actually their lips can kind of shoot forward in order to like peck in between maybe the holdfast or the rocks in order to suck out their food, which is generally like little invertebrates.
Kaitlyn, do you want to talk about kelp forests in general? Like, what is kelp?
Yeah,
like
sure.
The plant, question mark?
So kelp is kind of an oddity, I guess. Kelp is not a plant. It's not an animal. It's a protist. If you want to think of it kind of like a plant, it does very similar things. It just doesn't have a true root structure. So we call the bottom of kelps not roots, but holdfasts. And it's hard to see them in this picture, but they do look very similar to roots, except instead of being inside of some kind of substrate like soil, they're locked on top of rocks, and their holdfast is what is used to hold them onto those rocks. And then the long skinny pieces of the kelp that you generally can't see are called like the stalk or the stipe, right? So like that is the piece that kind of gives structure and holds up the kelp. And then those blades that I was just talking about that the kelp fish look like are like those big and brown, and they are what takes in the sunlight for photosynthesis to get their food. Now, you notice that the kelp is floating super well. That's because the kelp has something called like a gas bladder that are little bubbles of air pockets that help hold up the kelp. And so those stipes are really flexible. And so you can see our waves are going back and forth in the tank. And so it actually helps move nutrients around and helps the kelp grow. And then those gas bladders help them float to the top, which is extremely important because our kelp only grows from the top, and because our kelp can grow up to like 2 feet a day under really good conditions. So they like really cold water and water with lots of waves like you see in our kelp tank. Oh, it looks like we've got a couple of bingos. Way to go, Haley. Looks like Jess.
Go, Haley.
Go. And then way to go, Moni. Yeah, congratulations, guys. You guys got a bingo.
Here in San Diego, off of our coast, so as we all know, is the Pacific Ocean, which is a really nutrient-rich ocean. And so that's why kelp grows really, really well here. Because it's the Pacific, it's cold, it offers a lot of great nutrients for it to thrive, and sunlight.
And it looks like Chris is asking what makes kelp important in our ocean. So maybe I'll give a little bit and then I'll let Dalissa answer too. But for a lot of animals, kelp forests are home. And so we've mentioned a lot of these animals today in our bingo card, and even like the otter, some animals outside of the bingo card. But these animals need the kelp forest in order to survive. And kelp forests aren't just here, they're located all over the world, even like off the coast of southern Australia. That's a really good place to be able to find kelp forests. And these forests are extremely biodiverse. You can kind of think of them as maybe like the rainforest of the ocean. And so they provide homes and shelter and even food for like thousands of different species, which makes them extremely important.
I also like to think about it as when you have like a substrate that's kind of smooth, it doesn't offer as many different niches, which are kind of like areas of habitat that other species can utilize. So being that the kelp is vertical, offers some vertical space, offers a lot of like nooks and crannies for animals to sneak their ways in and hide themselves in. So it offers a lot of different or more niches.
And kelp isn't just important for animals. Kelp is also important for us. In fact, if you guys didn't know, we use kelp every single day in our lives, or at least I hope we do. So kelp has something called alginate in it, and that is it's almost like a thickening material that is often used in many products that you have in your house right now. Dalissa, you want to tell us some of those products?
Oh yeah, ice cream. Me and Kaitlyn love ice cream. I had some last night.
So did I, again.
Toothpaste, lotion. I put on some lotion this morning, some sunscreen, some facial washes. We'll have it too, and even makeup.
Yeah, so it's a great thickening agent. It's important not only for the animals that live there as homes and niches, but also for us as well. So protecting our kelp forest is something that we're all very passionate about here at Birch. And it looks like we got a couple more bingos, a Kate, and a Jack. Congratulations, guys, and thanks for playing with us. We only have maybe about 5 more minutes. So if you guys get a bingo, let us know. If you have any more questions, please let us know. And then maybe we could talk about a little bit more about which one haven't we done yet? A tree fish? Do you know anything about tree fish, Dalissa?
Yeah, so these are the ones that are yellow with kind of like black stripes. They're related to the rockfish, and a lot of times you'll find them down in the rocks. They'll kind of like squeeze themselves into the crevices, which is something that's common for fish, to like find these little nooks and crannies that they can squeeze into. Yeah. They also have nice little great spines near their dorsal fins too, which if anybody can think of how spines might be beneficial, their adaptations, spines actually help protect species. So even if they're not super sharp, they'll say, hey, I'm spiky, I wouldn't be a good bite. You might want to keep your distance.
Yeah, many fish have those spines, and some of them even have them maybe on the side of the operculum. So that's a bony plate that covers up their gills that helps protect like their gills from harm. So a lot of animals have them a little spine there as well. So if you're ever near a fish, just make sure you're very careful. Also, a really good reason to just kind of let them do their thing. And it looks like someone has done almost a blackout. They've got a whole
that is amazing
bingo page except for the scuba diver. And I don't know if we'll see a scuba diver in the next 5 minutes. We actually don't have a schedule for whenever our aquarists go in to feed them and care for the tanks, but they do so about 3 or 4 times a week. Maybe Dalissa, you want to talk a little bit about what our aquarists do to help keep this tank going?
Yeah, so this tank is really cool because it's set up so that the water comes straight from the Pacific Ocean. So it filters in and then it filters back out into the ocean with the help of our Scripps pier. So because we're part of the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, we're able to utilize that pier to collect water for all of our exhibits. And what the divers do, some of them are aquarists and some of them are just really great volunteers that have volunteered to help go in and feed the animals. And so one thing a lot of people ask is, how do you feed the fish at the bottom of the exhibit? And we do that with our divers. So they'll dive in and literally, for example, the eels, we talked about how they're almost entirely blind. Like they're severely nearsighted. The diver that goes in has to wave the food literally right in front of their faces so that they can get it. And that makes sure that all of the fish in the exhibit are really well fed, and they're, for the most part, really comfortable with the divers. And they, like the horn shark, will even go right up to the divers and ask for snackies. So yeah, we're really, really grateful to have divers.
Yeah, when they do go in the tank, that not only, like she said, do they feed all of the animals, including that beautiful giant black sea bass. You can see her in all of her glory right there at the top of the tank right now. But they also will scrub that tank. So that window is very big, so you can imagine that it does have to be cleaned every now and then, although a lot of our fish in here are like cleaner fish. So they kind of help keep it clean. But they go in, they scrub the tank, and they'll even put like a huge, it's a big white hose, almost looks like a vacuum hose. So if you ever are watching without us and you're wondering why is there a big white hose in there, it's because they're vacuuming the bottom of the tank, because there are little bits of rock and sand down there. And so they want to vacuum out any of the debris that gets, mixed in with the sand. And so they'll vacuum it out. They'll pick up any like of the old, maybe the old like base of kelp and put them in a little bag, and they'll clean the windows too. So they work very hard on this tank, not only to feed everybody and to keep an eye on them to make sure that they're healthy, but also to clean everything and make sure it looks spick and span for us to do this every week.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it looks like a Ralph Warner got a bingo. Congratulations. And it looks like he's also a scuba diver, so welcome.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
And so did Allian and Aldrich. Congratulations, guys, and thanks for playing.
Yay, snaps for you all. Good job. One thing, Kaitlyn, you mentioned was the cleaner fish. Do you know of some other species of cleaner fish that we have in this tank?
Yeah, it's possible that you might see something called a senorita fish. So there's definitely, if you ever go to the aquarium, there's a whole tank that's for the senorita fish. So if you get a chance to look at them, please do. Senorita fish are kind of orangish pink, and they are very, very famous and very popular in kelp forest and even reefs because they like to clean parasites and bacteria off of other fish. And so some fish will even go down to them wherever they are, and they'll open those operculum to that even protect their gills and allow the senorita fish to kind of peck the little parasites off of them, which is a very brave thing for a fish to do because those operculum are the only thing that's protecting their gills. And so they must trust those fish a lot. And so that's something that maybe we can think about too. We go to our salon, we really let people care for our hair, and to some people that's like a lot of trust. And so these senorita fish love cleaning other animals, and they do a really good job of it too. So we
actually have a species of fish in this exhibit that has a symbiotic relationship with the senorita fish, and that's the blacksmith. So they're in the damselfish family, the blacksmiths, and they're kind of blue-black, and they have small little spots near the tail. But they will literally go down and make themselves like perpendicular to the floor, just waiting for the senoritas to come up and clean them up. So it's like having like a little shower time in the ocean. I think of it as like you have to keep your nails clean, got to keep your body clean. So do fish.
And now's a great chance to get a really good look at our giant black sea bass. She swam down a little bit and across that screen, kind of showing off for you guys. We only have maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, so any last minute questions, let us know. But we want to thank you guys for playing the Kelp Bingo. We hope you had a really good time, and you guys can play this even when we're not here. Just keep a close eye on all those fish, and maybe you can think a little bit more about like what they're doing in the tank, or why they're behaving the way they are, or even what colors the fish are. So just things to think about while you're playing on your own.
Kaitlyn, before we go, do you want to talk about your favorite exhibit?
Sure. Yeah. So my favorite exhibit is probably our seahorse exhibit. So we have one tank that is my favorite, but just in general, seahorses are really, close to my heart. I love them very much, and they're amazing creatures with all kinds of wonderful adaptations, from their prehensile tails that like latch onto things. They can change colors, and they're really just beautiful. And I feel very lucky to be able to work with and around them all the time. So this is about all the time we have for you guys. So thank you so very much for playing with us. Thanks for watching our Kelp Cam live. Keep a lookout for another one. It will come back, and keep telling us about all those bingos that you get. Thank you guys, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.